Hi everyone, welcome back to the FitFam, and today we're going to do a deep dive into
Ages and supplementation. We've never done it like that. I'm really excited.
that is cool. So, what do you need to take at different ages of life? Let's find out. Welcome to another episode of FitFam. As always, this is Miss Natural Olympia Hillary,
And this guy right here is Doug the Formulator.
and boy, welcome back. Did an episode without you and I missed you.
Oh, I know. It probably wasn't as fun, was
It
it?
wasn't.
Tell the truth.
It was.
And I'm feeling a little spicy today. I know it's like me, spicy. Doug's had to nip my swearing in the bud a couple of times today because there's no swearing at the office. And Doug never swears. And Hillary
Potty mouth sometimes.
does. Okay, I'm actually super excited about this topic. And before we get into
Supplements by age group
supplement by
with
age
supporting studies.
with supporting studies, let's talk about before we actually enter the earth. Let's talk about
Before we have an age?
before we have an age. Yeah, there we go. Before we have an age. Let's talk
Prenatal?
about prenatal.
Oh, okay.
Tell me the ultimate prenatal.
Wow. It's the ultimate prenatal is everything on the market. This is prenatal throwaway. I mean, it's so bad. In fact, I just read the other day, kind of off subject, but that they were measuring plastics in foods and in supplements,
I happen
and
to be drinking from a plastic bottle.
yeah, sure, yep, the supplement that actually had the highest amount of phthalate plastics in it was Centrum
Wow.
prenatal and the one that silver, I think, though, for older. Like those two were the highest in the entire industry. Isn't that crazy?
Crazy.
So, anyways,
That's crazy.
and the reason we say that is that the key to prenatal is to make sure we use whole foods. And whole foods meaning like the B vitamins, that they're methylated, right?
Yeah, right. So the biggest problem that we see is synthetic prenatals. It
That's it.
doesn't make sense. It's creating more harm than good.
Absolutely.
And your body's having to work. Let's not even talk about the fetus right now. Let's not talk about the baby right now. Let's talk about the work that the mother's body has to do to make them even usable.
Usable or get rid of them,
Or
right?
get rid
Either
of them.
way.
Yeah, either way. Great point.
And so it's vitamin A is my favorite vitamin to talk about with prenatal because doctors, many times allopathic doctors, will say, don't take too much vitamin A. It can cause birth defects. Absolutely true. But yet they don't tell you to not eat, extra carrots because you're going to get too much vitamin A. Why? Because there's a difference. Synthetic causes damage. So back to what the ultimate prenatal is, sorry, kind of roundabout,
That's okay.
is you want a prenatal that, number one, focuses on whole food vitamins, organic chelated minerals, and essential fatty acids. And so, what would that look like? What it would look like is a supplement that is well rounded, good vitamin supplement, right? All the vitamins, A, B, C, D, E, K, all that, and all the minerals, calcium, magnesium, and that, but with a focus on the prenatal. This is critical. The focus really should be on getting enough iron for hemoglobin and the development, making sure that the baby can develop properly. Calcium, the keep going back to iron, but the fat soluble vitamins A, D, E, and K are so critical for the development. And then the one that is known quite a bit, but I think it's misunderstood, is folate. They will tell you folic acid. It's not the same. Folate. It's a very specific B vitamin that is critical for the development of nerves. So as the nervous system's starting to be developed. So I'm really big on those with making sure that the fatty acids, good essential fatty acids are present because the the cells in the body, the trillions of cells, the brain, all of those are made up of lipids. And there's a biphospholipid layer around every single cell. And then, the majority of the brain will use that. So if you're not getting good essential fats in the diet as a mother, then your baby's not going to be able to develop. Or if the baby does get good development, that means it's pulled, what was lacking from the mother from areas that really shouldn't be taken from. And that's how come a lot of times moms are so depleted after they have a baby because it actually stole from them from vital areas that they didn't want to, but baby comes first.
Yeah. How come I don't see the timer going? I usually see the timer going. She's recording for sure.
Mhm.
I'm going to stand up so he knows. Remove that. Okay.
All right.
All right. No, that's so good. And I think something to mention here is just how important it is mom's diet.
Mm.
Understood. None of us are perfect. We're going to have our cravings, especially while we're pregnant. But keeping a well-balanced diet that has essential fatty acids and probiotics as part of a daily consumption and greens, all of the things, just really being mindful that how you're eating is impacting your baby, I think
Absolutely.
is really important.
And we'll do another episode. Just made me realize there's a lot of new research out on what the father and the mother should be eating
Ooh,
before they conceive and how long they should be off of things like alcohol and some of these other things
wow.
that we're talking new research showing, and I won't give it away because we'll do an episode on it, but man, it is critical that the father stay away from certain things before they even try to conceive for a
Wow.
period of time. And so we'll talk about the statistics showing the increased risk of everything from autism and or even be able to have a baby, right? Things like that. So
Okay,
we'll
that's
get that.
really great.
So let's
Cool.
go to this. So now the baby's born.
Okay, born. So our next age group, we were talking about 2 to 12.
2 to 12.
Okay, so 2 to 12, the most important, if you had to say the number one thing that is most important from 2 to 12, other than, I already know, top two. Tell me the top two most important.
Well, what we're talking about is what's the body going through at that point,
Yeah.
right? The key needs
Yeah.
and growth, immunity, brain development, bone health. These are all really critical factors. So when we think about that, the growth of the body, the immunity, brain, and all that, what nutrients, right?
And it's a critical time, right?
So
2 to
critical.
12, those adolescent years.
Yeah, and you'll look at even a lot of psychologists that look back and say, really, what happened between 2 to 12 determines a lot of your life as far as how you act, how you treat people,
Mhm.
how you think, your skills, how fast you can pick up on different things that you do, whether it's sports or activities, is based on the development from 2 to 12. And so this is a critical area that kind of comes back to that as we were doing this and using even ChatGPT and Grok to like, what do they say and stuff? Loved it because you're like, it didn't talk about EFA.
Yeah, I did.
And
Get
EFA
upset,
standing
didn't I?
for?
Essential fatty acids. This one is critical because at these young ages, it is so important that we create that brain that gets all of the nutrients that it needs. And think of everything that essential fatty acids are responsible for.
Well, they're essential for, like we're talking in prenatal now,
Mhm.
just more important actually is right during the development of it, the body's saying, okay, we need to make more cells and we want to make them as strong as we can.
Mhm.
And so it's okay, pull the fatty acid, DHA, EPA, all these things. And like, oh, we don't have it. What do we do? And so it starts trying to steal, or it'll use, like if you're building something, you don't have the right material, all of a sudden it's going to use inferior materials and
Oh,
stuff. And
such a great way
it's
to
such a
look at that, right? If all of the key nutrients aren't available, it's still going to create the building blocks. They're just going to be fragile,
fragile. That's
So
it. And so where can you get EFAs from diet? What's the best fatty foods?
Okay, so let's talk about how we get kids, especially at those young ages, 2, 3, 4, to take vitamins. First of all, with our kids, we taught them very young how to swallow vitamins, and they understood the difference between what a vitamin was, and they took it when mom and dad gave it to them. So that's number one. But you would always do like a tiny little piece of bread and cover it, and then have them swallow it, which was
Yeah. And I love that. And it was like you get a piece of bread and put the capsule halfway in it. So they see that the capsule, right? You don't hide it in it and swallow that bread. They're like, oh, they can do it. Because for some reason, a lot of people, even adults, think they can't take capsules when their bites of food are 20 times larger than that, right? At least 10 times.
Yeah,
And
it's more
so,
of a mental
yeah,
thing.
so the children are able to see that mentally. Oh, okay, swallow. And then our kids, by the age of what, 3 and 4, maybe even earlier than that,
Oh,
even
earlier
our
than that.
grandkids,
Yeah.
they take 4 or 5 of them at a time.
Yeah, and one at a time is typically perfect because we don't want to put too
Yeah.
much in the throat. And then sometimes it's just having them. You have to practice it with
Right.
them, and so the
Absolutely.
more you practice, the better they get.
So before I talk about the supplement essential fatty acid, which foods should be parents be giving to children from that age group to get essential fats?
So here's the thing is that if it's almost impossible to get them to take capsules or things, then you can find it in different forms. So we love flaxseed oil. And from a very young age, we were putting flaxseed oil in the kids' smoothies, and they had no idea they were getting their essential fatty acids. We also love avocado oil, extra virgin olive oil, which is amazing. Our kids at a very young age would dip bread in extra virgin olive oil and eat it that way. So there's, what were you thinking?
No, like even like foods, avocados,
raw nuts, avocados,
coconut.
Coconut. Oh, that's another one. Our kids would love, we would get young coconut, bust open the top. They'd love to drink the milk out of it, and then they would just love to scoop the things out of it.
And young coconut, it's easy to get the meat out of it, right? Because it's younger, softer, and they love that. They love to run around thinking they were in Hawaii and stuff. So you can make it fun. So we got EFA. Another big one, I think with all of them, but is enzymes, especially at this age. Plant-based enzymes like digestimal or other enzymes. The reason that's so critical is that many decades ago, right when a child was born, that 1, 2, 3, they're able to consume all kinds of foods and no issues. Nowadays, food allergens are so big with youth, and you're like, oh, well, they grew out of it. And I think a lot of parents knew this. Oh, yeah, my kid couldn't have different things, when they were young, but all of a sudden they grew out of it and they didn't break out anymore. And that when they ate those foods.
Can I keep going?
No, and it came down a lot to two things, enzymes and probiotics. It took a lot longer for the body to develop the ability to digest the food because we're not developing the probiotics soon enough, and we're not getting our enzymes to be activated at the level they should at a young age due to processed chemicals in foods and things we've talked about. But it's a real deal. So making sure your kids have the enzymes and probiotics.
I love that. I have a theory.
Let's hear it.
I've never seen you look more nervous in my life. Okay, I just want to run this by you really quick. Let's talk about pregnancy. Okay. So remember my sister Holly? You know her. Mm-hmm. I went to a High Rocks with her this last weekend. Mm-hmm. You didn't love that I was gone. Anyways, she has a daughter who has a major peanut allergy. Okay, correct. Major. When Holly was pregnant, she could not get enough peanut butter, and she had peanut butter every single day of her pregnancy, every day, and in large doses. She definitely had a peanut butter and jelly sandwich every day. Do you think Holly's consumption of peanut butter made it so that Tatum had a food allergy, or are they completely unrelated?
So I don't think it was a problem. I know it was a problem. So,
wait, is this like a real thing?
It is a real thing, because remember, with enzymes in the body, it's like a battery, right? Mm-hmm. If we overuse that battery, then it doesn't perform at the level it needs to anymore. And so in this case, Hollywood ate so many peanut butter sandwiches that peanut butter, the body was constantly digesting that peanut butter, and she used up, or was using at the time, those enzymes that should have been developed in the baby. And I know there's argument out there on this, but I've seen it so many times over the last 30 years with different foods and that a little bit of something also stimulates, like homeopathically, so that it's better for the baby. And when you overdo it, then you actually get the toxic effect. And that's one of those factors. And we know that foods will determine a child's, not necessarily genetics from the DNA code, but their actual genetics, things as far as how the cells are working. And we know it from like alcohol, right?
Right.
How come the child then, if a parent were alcoholics or loved alcohol, how come the child now does? Because it's actually equaled within the child as it's being developed in the womb. So it absolutely was a factor with it. And that's really why it comes down to the prenatal, but also that 2 to 12, the development at that age group for the rest of your life. Probiotics are critical because it's not developing fast enough because of our foods, the enzymes that digest food. We talked about EFA. There's a few more things that are important at that age.
So calcium, right?
Absolutely.
And is that just because of bone development?
Because of bone development, right? So when the body's producing growth hormone, which is huge, between 2 and 12 for growth, we think growth hormone for puberty, right? But growth hormone is really blasting between 2 to 12 just because the initial growth phase of the bones and that before the puberty. And so it's absolutely critical to get the calcium in there in the right forms. Again, the chelated calcium, and there's research studies, Journal of Bone and Mineral Research, showing the importance of that for children with calcium, and then the associated vitamin with that,
Magnesium.
And I think that that's one that's overlooked on the literature. Magnesium is critical for muscles, and as your muscles are starting to develop there, and then that brings in the other vitamin, vitamin D.
Vitamin D. Okay. So those are essential for 2 to 12.
Mhm.
And also at those ages, it's critical to help them develop taste for all kinds of different foods, a full array, fruits, vegetables, carbs in the sense of like oats and rice and lean meats, and really helping kids to understand and enjoy all of the different food groups at a young age.
That's a great point, because part of the research showing why kids have allergen problems growing up is because they get stuck many times with this very specific diet over and over again. And a lot of times
Only
that's
eat certain
parents' fault,
foods.
right? It's that
Oh.
we're, just eat this, just eat that. And they're the same thing every day, or the kids eating the processed foods, because mom and dad aren't preparing or really looking at making sure the kids are getting a really good array of nutrients. And if you want your child to grow up healthy and strong, you want them to develop their probiotics, their internal gut, because that is the second immune system. That helps brain development through what's called the vagus nerve. You want your child to be able to digest all these different foods, and the body get used to the different nutrients and forms of those nutrients in the body, the antioxidants. So all of the different fruits, vegetables, and like you mentioned with coconut even, make it fun. Like, hey, I'm going to bring this coconut. Let's pretend we're in Hawaii, or this funky dragon fruit, or all these things you can get in the store that is different. Do it and enjoy it.
And help them to appreciate the sweetness that comes from fruits and that kind of thing, and
Versus
really
sugar,
try to limit the sugar, because it's not only affecting, them just wanting sugary, things, it's also affecting the gut, and the gut is starting to crave that, which makes it harder to get them to eat all the important things. So,
Right. 2 to 12.
2 to
So
12.
let's go to the next.
Let's jump to adolescence,
Perfect.
13 to 18.
What's the key needs?
So we have like rapid growth in this age, hormonal changes, which I think is really big here, right? And then of course cognitive function. But when we're talking about the hormonal changes that are going on at that age, essential fatty acids become really important.
Yeah.
There
A lot of these are going to
as
be the
well,
same, right? You
right?
could say,
Yeah, I think so. I think the things that are the same is vitamin D is going to be important, enzymes, EFAs, probiotics always, and then the one that kind of jumps in at this age is iron.
100%. And I think that's overlooked at this age group. It's really important. There was a study done at the Lancet, which is a British journal, like American Journal, JAMA, Journal of American Medical Association is theirs. And they found that iron deficiency was a major factor in brain development, in cognition. And so the ability to start having good memory, to be able to think clearly and quickly, and the important things that are going through that age with school and that, and that iron was a factor, because when we talk about the brain, we're always saying essential fatty acids and D, which is critical. Right?
Yeah.
But iron's a key, and a combo with iron that's not looked at is probiotics. Is the probiotics in the gut affect, through the vagus nerve, as I mentioned, into the brain, the actual utilization of iron in the brain cells? And I think people don't make that connection, or it's not talked about even amongst doctors much.
Okay.
And so it's really huge to be able to do that and understand it. So again, from food wise, that's where these dark greens come into play. It's so critical at that age. And that's the age group 13 to 18 that most people will shy away, right? They don't want to eat the vegetables. And we have, all the memes about that and that type of thing. And that's so critical to find a way to have your children eat a lot of it and enjoy the dark greens, the spinaches, right? The kales, those types of things.
Yeah, 100%. And then the other nutrient that you mentioned for this age, what are we at?
13
to 18, which I thought was awesome that you could talk about, is creatine.
And this is based on a lot of new studies, right? The studies are coming fast and furiously on this, and creatine is such an important factor now, not just for muscle, which is 13 to 18, right?
Right.
To be able to help with, But back to the brain again, that we're understanding creatine is this huge, what's called methyl donor. It gives methyl groups to allow methylation to happen, which is a critical factor in DNA and your genetics working properly and at the level of the mitochondria. So
Okay.
creatine I'm a big fan of. And at this age group, 13 to 18, 5 grams a day. It's not going to hurt to do more, but 5 grams a day is critical. I would make it, a part of the daily routine with people in that for sure.
Okay. And you would do that at any point in time? You do it in the morning, you do it around like as these kids are growing up, around their workouts. How would you incorporate that?
Yeah, I think it'd be great to do it like in the evening, like right, because most times they're coming back from their working out and
Okay, I
things.
have
And
a
at this
question
age,
about that.
Mhm.
Evening, is there any chance that creatine can create interrupted sleep? Like, I just think like sometimes when I take creatine, I feel like my brain is like functioning really well.
It is, and for some people, that's a factor that you can't shut off the brain. If you're an A-type personality, and that it might be a factor, but saying by 5 to 6, that would be a key factor with it.
Did you just say I have
Um,
an A-type personality?
Oh, you are naturally an A-type. You actually
Thanks,
kind of
Rachel.
suppress it at times,
Oh,
but
okay.
you're naturally A-type for sure. You're like meant to like accomplish crazy things in the world.
Oh,
And so,
wow.
okay.
Okay, let's get
So
past this.
so that 13 to 18, the other thing that I want to mention that might be great for parents out there is the probiotic studies between that
Mm,
age group. And the reason that that's such a huge factor with that age group is that probiotics help with the final absorption of nutrients into the body. And it's a major factor with things like acne. And so there's a huge study that was done, probiotics reducing acne severity in adolescents. And this comes from the Journal of the American Academy of Dermatology, showing that the number one lifestyle nutrient that you could take to reduce acne through adolescence is probiotics.
wow, I love that. So, really, I feel like at this age, really learning how to incorporate probiotic foods into the diet could be really, really great
Like,
and essential. Things like sauerkraut. If your kids like pickles, they'll probably like sauerkraut.
uh,
Really good yogurts, plain
true
yogurts. And you
yogurts,
can sweeten them easily with
berries.
stevia, of course, berries, but I mean, like for a kid to really be like, oh,
Yeah.
that's good.
Mhm.
You just put a little bit of stevia, sometimes a little bit of lemon,
Mhm.
and it'll be perfection. So, yeah, I love that. In fact, well, I'm remaking my fruit salad and like learning like some healthier ways. I'll leave that recipe at some point for everybody.
Okay.
Okay, so let's go into young adults ages 19 to 39.
And isn't it funny that young adults all the way to 39?
I know I missed it by 5 years. But so here we are like the key needs for this age group. We're talking about energy, reproductive health, and stress management. And I love that that's kind of where we're at right here. I
Yeah.
think that's really cool.
And let's talk about the need for that, because energy at the age of 19 going up, and you still have a little bit at that age, but your
Mhm.
growth hormone levels start to come down. And growth hormone levels are one of the factors that you have this energy without doing anything. You can eat crap, and usually a lot of times you have energy, right?
Yeah, what's that
And
saying about age versus like when you have like there's nothing that beats like youth. You can only do so much when you have youth on your side, and it's because you have that natural energy, that
yeah,
like
yeah, it's hard to beat
growth
that.
hormone,
Yeah.
like get after it. So, what about age 20? What does that
Well,
start
it's
to?
actually not supposed to quit being produced, till the late 20s and that, but because of our processed food, the chemicals, we're finding out now plastics, such phthalates, such a huge factor, that our growth hormones starting to completely go away at around 21 when it shouldn't. And it should
Whoa,
just
I
slowly
wasn't expecting
decline.
that.
Yeah, it should slowly decline as we age, clear up till about 40.
Okay.
But it's actually being stunted much earlier than that, and it's causing huge issues with people, and development of hormones and balance and those types of things. That's why they're actually putting young, 21 to 25-year-olds on testosterone stuff, which is the worst mistake ever on the
Crazy.
planet Earth. Like,
That's just
I'm
wild.
telling you, that is the worst thing you can do, just because then you're, instead of like, oh, what's slowed down, we need to then get sped up more growth hormone, right? Hormone balance and that. you completely suppress because now you're doing it with a drug that you have to take the rest of your life. You never
Right.
allowed your body to develop it. But let's go 1939, energy, reproductive health, stress management,
And let's talk
main
about,
ingredients.
yeah, let's talk about the frontal cortex, right?
Mm.
That's also, at this point in time, the frontal cortex is being fully developed.
Right.
So all of the nutrients that are necessary for all of those things. So again, we're going to talk about EFAs and enzymes always and probiotics, but folate comes into play here with some more magnesium.
Yeah, so we'll folate, just kind of in it for a minute. What's the big deal with that? That's women of childbearing age and the need, because we know that when you have the right folate, not folic acid, folate, right? Whole food B vitamins, that it prevents neural tube defects in a huge, huge way. And I think it's really, really important to understand that most birth defects that are super common are really come back to in a big way folate deficiency, which again I can't overemphasize probiotics in that role. Because remember, one of the things probiotics do, they do many things, but one of them is make B vitamins. You make B vitamins in the gut if you have probiotics. So when I'm talking about folate and those things, a lot of times it's just the gut being clean, not having the acidic drinks and the energy drinks, which is really prevalent 19 to 39 because they're trying to keep energy going. And then it destroys the friendly bacteria, the probiotics. So everyone should be taking probiotics for sure. Again, 19 through 39, folate, um, back to magnesium.
Yeah,
Big,
so
big fan.
magnesium supports stress relief and sleep, which is really big.
Yeah, and the sleep is really big from that age
Really
group
big.
because your body's now developing a different circadian cycle and it's going through, okay, it's turning into an adult. Like you said, the frontal cortex and the brain and all that. And it's critical that that happens. And magnesium is a big factor with it because it helps with stress, anxiety, that happens as we young adults, right?
Okay, so I love it. Okay, so let's move on to middle age.
Can I mention one more thing on the young adults?
You sure can.
This is where really people should start developing the intake of herbs during this time.
Oh, that's right.
Right. And so like mushrooms, like lion's mane and things like that help with that final brain development because the frontal cortex doesn't develop fully till like 23, 24. And if you don't have those nutrients, it doesn't fully develop to make good decisions, rational decisions. Like a lot of times when people up to 21 and that, like, what? That was stupid, mistake. A lot of times they just don't have the rational thinking and the reasoning available to them because their frontal cortex isn't developed.
I'll tell you what, I mean, I guess it was a little bit earlier than this, but I've seen some videos of my sons doing some things with their friends now that they're grown and they feel like it's funny to show me. And I'm like, the fact that you guys even made it to adulthood is amazing. So, okay, anyway,
So herbs, mushrooms, turmeric, curcuminoids, things like that. Just think more herbal should be introduced into it. And you'll see people gravitate toward that in college and stuff. Like they're drinking more green tea, they're drinking that. And there's a reason for it because their body actually needs those herbs that have nutrients in them that we don't even know the names of yet. And it's respecting nature and getting some of those healthy herbs in the diet.
I love it. Okay, so next we're going on to middle-aged adults.
Mhm.
Hello, my era.
Me
So
too.
ages until October.
I am middle-aged.
Well, we're talking about ages
What age group?
40 to 59.
Yeah,
How
that's
old
right.
are you in October?
Today I'm 59. So we're talking about my age group.
You know what? This is going to be my age group for like another decade plus. How long will it be your age group?
The key needs are heart health, joint maintenance, and metabolism.
Okay, yeah. So again, we're hitting those main nutrients that we keep talking about, but adding, that vitamin D is really important, EFAs, enzymes, probiotics, but now we're going to add coenzyme
Q10. And then let's talk about that real quick. Back to the key needs. Heart health, because at this point, what people have done up to the age of 40 starts determining the longevity of the heart. And if they've ate a lot of bad foods, a lot of fried fats, now again, the plastics, chemicals that are coming in, the glyphosate that's in the foods, all of these different things, then it's affecting the heart. So now instead of a heart that's going into maturity, that is doing great, it's starting to have little defects in it because there's many possibilities with the heart, with the valves, the heart itself. and buildup of plaque in the bloodstream. And so heart health is critical with this age, and that's why you're mentioning something like something called coenzyme Q10, which is a nutrient that's ubiquitous that is basically in every cell of the body, and it's critical for heart health and being able to help it. So I definitely would take something with coenzyme Q10 in it. And then again, some of the things we don't know about specifically, we just call them phytonutrients, but it comes back to the herbs like turmeric, which has the active ingredient called curcuminoids in it, things like that, resveratrol, just coming to more nutrient-dense foods and herbs. But the big one with that, at that age,
Vitamin D.
I think it's the most deficient vitamin we see in blood work, especially in the last, decade.
100% true, just
And,
even for us and what we,
absolutely.
Going through our clients.
And why that's important is the whole concept of mental factors with it. And at this point, between 40 to 59 is where the highest majority of suicide is, the highest majority of mental disorders, even marriages breaking up because of just mental issues going on, usually with both of them, but still, vitamin D is critical.
And you also mentioned K2 earlier when we were discussing it.
Right, absolutely. And K2, I think, needs to be added to that in a huge way. K2 is the vitamin that gets into the bloodstream, and its main job, is to pull calcium that doesn't belong in the bloodstream. In other words, the calcium that's starting to cause buildup in that, and put it back where it belongs, which usually is the bone, or to use for nerve function in the body. And so K2 is just huge. We're finding even K2 helps with blood flow, like with high hematocrit that we didn't know before. Cool. So K2, coenzyme Q10, vitamin D should be huge in that age group, which we're seeing and finding out that is a big factor with that. And I'm going to do a little shout out with that one to even a peptide.
Oh.
There's a peptide called melanotan-2
shout out.
that people take for tanning, right? Barbie protocol. But there's a study I just read showing that it helps people that are taking vitamin D where it's not actually converted and being used in the body. It's helping it convert, but through melanin and that. Not everyone needs it, but it's just a little shout out to the peptide world.
Cool. Okay, so let's move on to ages 60 plus.
The older adults, those old people.
Doug's age group come October, 60 plus. So here's where...
The new 40. Let's go.
Are you serious right now?
Okay.
60 is the new 40?
35. I'm going to make it so. Let's go. Who has more energy?
Than me? Or than in us?
Yeah.
You do.
So 100%. The key needs at this age group, bone health.
But I would... Energy in what way? Because one of us runs at least 3 miles a day.
I'm working on that.
And one of us does not.
Cognitive function. Okay. You're a beast.
Okay.
You're the best.
Okay. So bone health, cognitive function, and digestion. And I actually really like that we added digestion into here, because think about how much it benefits us when we take the pressure off digestion, especially as we're getting older, so that, we have the ability to function better.
Well, and it is so true. And it's like, think of all these reels, memes, stories, jokes about people. And in the 60 plus age group, you can count on them going out to eat for dinner at 3 or at 4, right? It's like them making fun of like Denny's is full, all that stuff of people at that age. Well, part of the reason is that digestion becomes so tough for people that if they eat later, they can't sleep. And they've noticed, if I eat, earlier in the afternoon, well, it comes down to digestion. Nothing wrong with eating earlier, but really should focus on why that's happening. And that's where enzymes are such a key. I think enzymes are the biggest factor right at the beginning and at the end, 60 plus, because you're going to use up your enzyme supply.
Right.
And you need to start adding back to that with more raw food as we age, chewing raw food thoroughly, and taking the enzymes. And I've seen more people improve their health as far as quality of life, saying, oh my gosh, things I don't like talking about, being regular, gas, bloating, Heartburn, and I can't even go eat with my family and friends because I get so bad
Heartburn's
heartburn.
such a big one.
And completely eliminates that if you digest the food. Heartburn, indigestion, gas, bloating is just not digesting your food. That's it. So if you add back the enzymes, every time you eat, take digestible, take your plant enzymes and probiotics, and that will eliminate the biggest factor of that. If you have people that you know that 60 and above, best thing you can do for them is to give them Digestamil to digest their food, and they'll be like, oh my gosh, life has changed because it's one of the biggest factors. So digestion being one.
I love that.
And so cognitive function.
Yeah, well, the other things that have been added
Added.
that have been added in this age group, specifically vitamin B12, right?
And B12 is not looked at and understand very much as it's actually helps with absorption. It's one of the key factors for enzyme activation, along with certain minerals, and the deficiency in that shows that it actually causes the ability to digest food, but huge on the neurological standpoint.
Okay.
And with nerve function, and one of the leading causes of dementia and Alzheimer's before we knew about plastics and then the chemicals like glyphosate and that causing a lot of this problem with dementia and Alzheimer's. It was before that, it was like the main thing we talked about was B12 and needing to get B12 levels up. So it's still important.
Okay. And then calcium, of course, as we age and bone density, right?
Absolutely. A great example of that was my mom, even, into her late 60s, 70s. She had osteoporosis when they did, the DEXA scanner T-score showed she had osteoporosis, which osteoporosis is minus 2.5 and more when you get back your bone scan. And it was like minus 2.8. And so we put her on the right forms of calcium and other nutrients, and then with some strength training.
Yeah, she was strength training into her 80s.
Yeah. And it reversed clear to where she not only didn't have osteoporosis, didn't have osteopenia, which is the first level, it was straight up bone health, right? With positive bone density and really strong. So calcium is such a huge factor with it, with exercise and vitamin D. And the other factor with it, with that age group, probiotics is key. And that goes back to digestion, but also mental
I don't think we can stress just how important it is to get your digestion under control, especially as we get a little bit older, to take all of the pressure off the body and to make it as easy as possible.
Can't stress it enough, for sure. And what we're learning now too is back to muscle, because really at that age, digestion, your muscle strength, keep your body strong and your gait and your walk and that, and brain function, right? If you think about our parents or grandparents or anyone that's a little bit older, those are the things you focus on the most. Their ability to move and not fall, to think clearly, to remember things, to to be alert, and digestion. And probiotics help with all of them. But the other factor with it, again, new studies in the last 3 years, creatine. A lot of times at that age group, they're like, I don't need creatine. I'm not trying to be, build muscle anymore, but just for cognitive function, and not just 5 grams. I mean, this will be the first time I probably said it publicly, but with the new research out, I feel that people 60 and above should be taking 15 grams a day, because you need 5 to 7, call it 7.5 for the muscle, but you also need separately another 5 to 7 for brain health. And so I'm a huge fan of that. Yeah.
Okay. Well, I love it. We hit, from conception, basically.
Well, you were even prenatal in it, yeah?
Yeah. All the way till, how old are you going to live? 120?
Yeah, 120.
Yeah. So 60 to 120, all of the things that you need.
Maybe we'll do another one sometime of like 85, 90 plus, what they need extra. Pretty much the
same things we talked about. But so, just to wrap everything up, I think number one, really, really important is to, get those enzymes and probiotics at an early age, keep them going. Let's never not. Let's always remember how important our nutrition and our diet is. That no matter what supplements that we're taking, nothing can do more for your body and your health than eating the proper, clean foods.
100%.
Right?
Completely agree. And we're just, I was talking to James on our previous podcast, this researcher, and it was like, made the point of, look, we manufacture whole food supplements, right? We feel we're the best in the world at what we do, and we make them, and we obey the laws of nature and we work so hard on our supplements. Our whole lifestyle and our income's based on that. But we would be wrong to say you need the whole food supplements first. The truth is what you just said. We need to focus on our nutrition and our food and getting the healthiest food. And then what's missing, then add back the supplements. That's why we're so big on blood work and that. Get the data. Don't just take things just because. But the data on this is very strong. We said over and over again, the probiotics, the enzymes at every age group, essential fatty acids at every age group, vitamin D, the fat soluble vitamins. And I think I'll close with my final statement of the biggest aha moment for me. We know probiotics and enzymes, it might be new to the public, but we know that the biggest aha moment for me, the change in the last decade or two
For
is,
you or
yeah,
for everyone?
I think for everyone,
Okay.
like overall that we're seeing through the research is that fat soluble vitamins are becoming deficient at very fast rates because they're not getting absorbed because we're eating too many processed fats and these chemicals from the phthalate plastics and the glyphosate chemicals, everything in those families, not just those by themselves, are making it so that fat soluble vitamins can't be absorbed and utilized. So we need to focus on A, D, E, and K at levels we never did in the past because of the problems that are out there today. And I think for me, that's a big new aha moment that we should be focusing on as we're moving forward.
I love that. Nothing else I could say to that.
Man, as always, thanks for coming back, Miss Natural Olympia Hiller.
And thanks for having me, Doug the Formulator.
Thank you all. Make sure to like, sign, click the bell. Talk to you soon. Keep chewing.